Hey garden friends, it's Sarah at Canadian Victory Garden. Thanks for tuning in. It is the very last day in May and things are really starting to take off here in the garden. We've got our beans coming up, we've got our peas doing well, our garlic is going crazy. Last year in this bed we had planted potatoes, and then in the fall we planted this garlic, and now we're going to try something new. We're going to interplant the garlic with some sweet potatoes. I'm pretty excited about this because I had no idea you could even grow sweet potatoes in Ontario, and here we are. So back in January, I purchased some sweet potatoes from the grocery store. As you know, regular potatoes in the grocery store are sprayed with some sort of chemical that stops them from sprouting. So are sweet potatoes. And it doesn't mean that they won't sprout ever. It just means that it will take longer than if you were trying to start potatoes from potatoes that were meant to be for seed that hadn't been sprayed. So we started back in January, and we basically put a sweet potato in some soil, partially tucked it down in there, kept the soil moist, and eventually we started getting little sprouts from one of the eyes. These are called sweet potato slips, and it turns into a vine. And along the vine, at every single, basically where every leaf is, it's a nodule that is a whole different plant. You can chop the plant apart there. So what we're going to do is just go along and clip these apart into slips. Now the interesting thing about sweet potatoes is you don't actually want to plant the sweet potato itself, because if I were to put this big piece or even just some small pieces, chunks of this into the ground, I would end up with some really large, really fibrous sweet potatoes. And anyone who enjoys eating sweet potatoes knows that the skinny ones are really the ones that you like to get. So we're going to just break all these guys off from the source.
So cool. It's like a little puzzle.
So sweet potato stems are really similar to like tomatoes and pepper plants, where they will basically root anywhere along the stem. You can actually see some starting to try right here. If I had left this vine outside on the ground for a while, it would definitely have started producing roots at these points. So another funny thing is that you can pull all these off, you can stick them in the ground, they'll start growing, and I can leave these two sweet potatoes in the soil and they will continue producing more slips. So I don't know how well this is going to work. This is the first time we've ever tried this, so I'm just going to let them keep going. You can also actually, these sweet potatoes, as I'm poking them, they're still very firm. They're not mushy or gross at all. If you were so inclined, you could actually still eat these, pull the slips off, cut off the roots that are all underneath of them, and fry them up, or however you like to cook them. If you have a look at I like the clear bin. If you have a look, there's quite a few roots that have come out of those two potatoes. Okay, so let's get chopping apart. Some of these leaves look a little sun damaged. I have left them in the direct sun and they don't really like that. Not that they don't like sun, but as they're producing these slips, they don't like to be out in the direct sun. Now, because we live in Ontario, you don't want to plant these anytime before June, so this is sort of the earliest possible time we can be doing this. And every time I see a little nodule, I'm just going to go and clip it apart. This one has a bunch of little tiny baby ones. I won't be able to clip them all apart, but we'll get some of them apart. I think this is so cool. I'm really excited to see how this works. We seem to be eating more and more sweet potatoes every year, so fun little project for us. No leaves on that bit, so I'm going to leave that and I'll compost it. This bit has a leaf. Now, there is another way that you can do this going around on the internet, where you break the slips off and then put them in a glass of water and encourage them to root, kind of like you would for if you had a little clipping of basil, and so many other plants do the same thing. But I've read that that's not really necessary, that you can just go ahead and kind of stick these in the ground and they'll take off. I mean, you have to keep in mind plants want to grow, so you don't really need to baby most plants as much as we do. Okay, so I've chopped all of those up into appropriate little bits with nodules, and hopefully they'll take root, and now I'm ready to go ahead and start planting. Okay, so I've just put a bit of extra compost in here because I see this spot is a little bit lower. We're just kind of constantly making compost and spreading it around when we have time, so I'll probably add up this area a bit more, although there's a bunch of uncomposted bits of cardboard in here still, so newspaper. So I will be, oh, this one should be chopped up more. So should that one be? Okay. I need my clippers. Okay. So leaf, root, nodules, plant. Spacing them in between the garlic. I don't know why there's such a big space here in the garlic. One of the most important parts of planting sweet potatoes is you want to keep them moist as they take root. It's a big hard chunk of something. So after I get these all planted in, I'll go back in and water very heavily. We are having a bit of like a heat wave, so hopefully we'll be able to get these guys going. Okay, so that is how we planted our sweet potato slips into the garden bed. Hopefully they produce something. We'll check in with you later at the end of the season and see what we've grown from this little project. Take care.